Welcome everyone to another episode of the Church Tech Cast Network Question and Answer Show. I'm your host, Paul Allen Clifford. Here, let me actually put up my information so that you can see that. You can email me, Paul, one 763-3246 or 1-877-POD-ECHO. And I will be happy to answer your question. That is a toll-free call, so if you're outside the U.S. and you use Skype, you should be able to call it and leave me a message as well. Right now, the message says just it's for Technobabble, my Thursday podcast, but I just haven't expanded the message, so just feel free to leave a message there. I have the chat room open, and I am ready to take your questions if you have any. But in the meantime, I've already collected some this past week, so let's dive into those, shall we? Lance on Church Tech on Google Plus asked, "Hey techies, brothers," I assume he means sisters as well. "I'm converting a room down the hall from our sanctuary into a meet and greet / cry room, and I'd like your ideas on live streaming our church service to it. I have a new HD TV on the wall and in the nursery down the hall. What's the most economical yet best way to do this? We've just upgraded our cable internet to 50 megabits up, 10 megabits down. Probably it's the opposite way, but anyway, so it should be sufficient. Thanks ahead of time." So the first thing that I would recommend is, if you are in the same location, and after some clarification I found out this is like 100 feet from the sanctuary, so it's not very far at all, I would not, under those circumstances, stream it to the internet and then bring it back down. Now, if you were already streaming, that's something totally different. I said totally different. Still, locally, I think I would not bring it down from the internet. You're going to get all sorts of delays. There could be problems with lagginess, connection difficulties like I sometimes have here. So what I would recommend that would be better would be to send it over a wire just locally. Now, there are several ways to do that. He's got HD TVs, and so that makes me think he needs to do something HD. The first thought I had was, I don't know how much the budget is. So I asked for clarification, and he's got about $500. Now that's going to make it very tight to accommodate. So what he can do is he can get a Balun, B-A-L-U-N, that's short for balance, unbalance, to take HDMI out of an HD camcorder and send it over a good distance over Cat5 cable. Now, there was some discussion on the board that this came from. Hey, well, what if I send it over the network? No, not over a network cable. Send it over Cat5. Now, Cat5 can be used for a network, but Cat5 can also be just a dumb cable that you put other information through. In the job that I had before I started doing this full time, we would send IR, power, all sorts of stuff over Cat5. Now, not over a computer network, but over the same kind of cable. So we had a separate run of cable that you would use to send whatever you need. It's got 8 conductors, 4 twisted pair, so it's actually pretty flexible. So what you want is you want one solid, unbroken piece of Cat5, and depending on the Balun, it might need to be Cat5e or Cat6, but one solid unbroken piece of this cable going from your worship location to this cry room location. Okay, that's very, very important. You can't send that through a hub. You can't send it through a switch. You can't do anything like this. It has to be one solid piece of cable. Next, you need a balun, like I mentioned before. Now, there are all kinds of baluns, so don't just go, oh, here's a $20 balun, I'll take that. No, what you need in this case is you need an HDMI to HDMI balun. So basically what it's going to do is you need also an HD camcorder that has a microphone in. So you take a mic level signal out of your board into the microphone in jack on your HD camcorder. Out of the HD camcorder, you go out HDMI. That goes to the HDMI balun. Out of the HDMI balun, it goes over Cat 5, probably terminated on each end 568A or B, but the same on both ends probably. And then on the receiving end, you've got yet another balun, and then another short HDMI cable, and that plugs into the So when this cable plugs into the HDMI input on the TV, you switch to the HDMI input on the TV, of course, because that's where it's plugged in, and you should get a beautiful signal. You might get some latency, but I'm thinking that it's going to be measured in seconds at the very most, not minutes. Whereas on, if you send it over the internet, you're probably looking at least 30 seconds, probably more like a minute or two of latency under some circumstances. It could be faster, but that would be what you should consider as a possibility. There are some other things that you could do. You could get an RF modulator and send audio and video into the cable input jack on the television, in which case you would need to use RG6 cable to do that, and that's something else that you could do. What's really going to be hard here is he didn't have a camera, didn't have a tripod, didn't have the balun. Those are your three most expensive things. Don't know about the Cat 5, Cat 5e, or Cat 6, whichever the balun requires. But if that's not in the wall, that's going to add some expense as well. Also because you're probably going to need plenum cable, which is not the least expensive cable, but it is the cable that's required for commercial installations. So keep that in mind as well. So that's the way that I would do it. You could take the video out of the camera if you had a camera that supports other outputs other than HDMI, which I hate HDMI. But for this kind of money, that's the choice we've got. You could go out of that and send audio and video separately, again, depending on your camera. So that's something for you to be thinking about. Next, Dan sent me a message over on trinitydigitalmedia.com. Actually, on the homepage, if you go to trinitydigitalmedia.com, which right now I'm having a little issue with the page that lists all the recent posts, so I've got a support ticket into the web host, having done all the normal stuff that normally fixes that. So keep that in mind. But anyway, Dan on the main page, Mitsubishi XL30U projector we bought in 2003 when we built our church. We've been buying aftermarket bulbs for it, and I suggested we bite the bullet and buy an OEM bulb this time to see if it would be better. Someone suggested that we might buy a newer projector that uses cheaper bulbs, since the XL30U was such a high-end projector at the time. Do you know how much we would have to spend in order to purchase a new projector that would be as good or better than the XL30U? Thanks in advance for your help. So I did a little research on his projector. It's got a 350 to 1 contrast ratio. That means that's the difference between the blackest blacks and the brightest whites in the projector. It's 3000 lumens. The best it can do on the HD side is 1080i. The best it can do on computer resolution is 1600 by 1200 at 4 by 3. So that's actually very dated. Very, very dated. Of course, you would expect that since the projector is 10 years old. So I did a search, and just one of the first projectors I came up with was about a $1,500 projector from Panasonic, the PTVX500U. And I say that because we've had really good luck with our Panasonic projector at the Frankfurt campus of my church. So that's why I picked that one. And I didn't write down all the information about it, but it had like a 3000 to 1 contrast ratio versus 350 to 1, and bigger numbers are better in this case. It had 5000 lumens versus 3000 lumens. It could do 1080p, it could do 4:3, but it's capable of so much more. So while that's the case, what he asked was, could we buy a newer projector to save us money on bulbs? And that's the problem. It's kind of like saying, well, I could buy a new car and save money on gas. That is true, but you, outside of the extreme situation where you have a Hummer that gets like 8 miles to the gallon, and then you're going to a smart car outside of kind of the extremes, you would not be able to pay for a car with the money you saved on gasoline. It would just have to be an extreme difference. And then going from a Hummer to a smart car, the only thing those two vehicles share in common is they're vehicles and they have 4 wheels. And that's about it. So that's the same way with these projectors. So that's why I'm using this as a metaphor. It depends on how much he's paying for the lamps, quite frankly. He didn't say that, but Dan, if you're paying $500 for a lamp, I found that the lamps for the Panasonic I was looking at are between $100 and $500, depending on whether you get an aftermarket bulb or an OEM bulb. And I say bulb, it's actually technically a lamp. Depending on that, so if you were paying for, and that's about the same price range as your current projector. So if you're paying on the upper end of the price range for your current projector, and you go to the bottom end of the price range on a newer projector, perhaps it would pay for itself. If you wanted to just upgrade and say, well, over time we'll save some money, but not enough to pay for itself, then that's fine. And I think that you could do that and get a much better projector right now than you could about a decade ago. So next question comes from Jenny, who's actually my wife's cousin, and she's the editor on my 3 published books right now, Podcasting Church, Tweeting Church, and The Serving Church. She edited all 3 of those, so she asked a tech question. I had to help her. Jenny was asking about a Blu-ray player. She's recently gotten an HD television and wanted one with online media playback, but didn't want to spend too much money. And I asked her why she wanted that, and she said that she had some shows online that she likes to watch. But so that's why she was looking for a more expensive Blu-ray player. So I told her about the Chromecast. Now this is kind of a valuable piece in church production as well. It could be that you're not going to use this in the big room. Maybe some churches would, but it's HDMI only, powers over USB, so you have to either plug it into the USB port on the back of an HD television, or you also have the ability to power it with an external USB power supply. With that said, I'm really impressed with the Chromecast, because what you can do is surf along on your laptop and say, oh, I want to show this, and you click a button and the YouTube video you're looking at shows up on your TV. Same thing from your iPhone, your Android phone. You can just find video online and show that on your TV, kind of the way Tony Stark did in Iron Man 2, which is very impressive. There's no remote control with this device, because you control it by controlling your smartphone or your laptop. So that's how it works. Then I would just get the cheapest Blu-ray player you could that met your needs, and you could save a lot of money. And I think the Chromecast is a better device. It's purpose-built. The smart TVs and the smart features in these Blu-ray players really leave a lot to the imagination. I mean, there's a lot to be desired in those cases, and so I would avoid getting something with those. And here's a really good reason why as well. When you search, how are you going to get information into a Blu-ray player or a television? A remote control. Have you ever tried to type with a remote control and an on-screen keyboard? Not fun. I've tried to do it with our Nintendo Wii and the on-screen keyboard, and it's not fun. So even typing into your smartphone and then having that show up online is remarkably better. And on a laptop, oh, forget about it. It's incredible. So that's why I would do it. Also, the UI on these additional features on Blu-ray players and televisions, not very good. Not very good at all. I wish it was, but right now there are none of them where you go, oh, well, if you get a Vixia, or Vixia is a camera. If you get a Sony TV, well, then you're golden. No. If you get a Magnavox, beautiful. No. If you get a it's wonderful. No, it's not. None of them are great. The third-party boxes are wonderful. So Apple TV, Chromecast, and I'm blanking on the other major player in the set-top box business. Not Google TV, by the way. It's but the Chromecast itself is great. Chromecast, Apple TV, and the third one, I keep thinking Roxio, but that's not it. It's not Voodoo. Anyway, those three are great, and so I would recommend any of those three. But at $35, the Chromecast is so inexpensive that it's hard not to justify. If my wife hadn't just been in a car accident, and we're probably going to have to buy a new car for her, well, a replacement car for her, I think it would be hard for me not to have one already. $35 is just so inexpensive. So keep that in mind. So if you have any questions for me to answer, feel free. Paul at trinitydigitalmedia.com. Here, let me put up my contact information again. Paul at trinitydigitalmedia.com, 1-877-763-3246. Head over to trinitydigitalmedia.com. This show records live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on churchtechcast.com. And I always have the chat window open. I'm not seeing any questions right now, so I won't answer those. But should you have any questions, you can absolutely give them to me then, or even hit me up on Twitter. I've got nearly 20,000 followers, 18,700 some odd, I think. I say nearly 20,000 because I expect to hit 20,000 here in the next couple of months, so very soon. And I'm at Paul Allen Cliff on Twitter there. So I hope that helps you, and until next time, go out and change eternity.